places that I like. It's a very difficult question to ask.
They're very affectionate.
Very
affectionately shot.
I find there could be a temptation with some places just to say, look at these funny people, and you could make something stupid and point at people with that. And in fact, when we was filming there, it was a bit awkward because there'd recently been a documentary called Benefits by the Sea, which was shot in Jerwood, which was right next to it. And it was, it was horrible, really, because they were, I don't know whether it was voyeuristic, but it wasn't a sort of kind look on them, and it was quite exploitative.
Yeah.
And so they were wondering what we were doing, and I thought part of that, but chat to people and they're not. So I quite just like those places with, it's the landscape and the people together. So I'm not, I think there's something about people in landscapes rather than necessarily their story or the landscape on its own. And it's nice to have a little bit of subtle trickery that allows you to give something an emotion. And I think hopefully the trickery, you undercrank things, you overcrank things, you fade people in and out, you get this person here, you look at them, that feeds into that.
It's very respectful. There's definitely,
hopefully.
Very respectful.
Yeah, I want to be. So that's good.
Yeah, and honouring them.
Yeah.
Great to see.
Thanks. Can we have an easier one?
Have you thought of doing your own edit of the last film without the music, actually?
Yeah, I've done some of those, but it's what they play live to, and it was for them. It was a nice collaboration actually. Because Stuart was really good. It was like, you go away and do it, and then we sent him a few edits, and he come back and made a few comments that were really good comments. So it wasn't, and I'm not very good at comments. So it was like, okay, well, I see what you mean. All right. So there was a lot of freedom with it, and they were really pleased. And when they play live to it, it's like that shot of the lad that goes past, which we didn't really get clearance for, on the bike, and he just puts it there, and so they're playing away, and there's a big audience in the auditorium. It's quite big, and he's just going past, going, "What are you looking at?" And it really works really well to me. It just turns the audience around, like, oh shit, I've been watching them, they're looking at me, So.
Does the timing of it work? Do they have a longer version to?
No, they've got that timing. Yeah. So it was done to the pre-recorded track. Yeah. They have a click and they just try and play to it. Well, no, to start, and then they just play to it because they're a bit more improvise a bit. So it's loose.
Yeah.
There's very very few hit points. Yeah. And it's made to be loose, so they can.
Sure. Yeah.
So you don't have to go bang. This happens if you have hit points all the way through, and it doesn't hit it. It's going to be really awkward. So it's made with that flexibility and consciously as well. We sort of edited to it, but we know that it's going to be the rough timing of it. Can I go now? You can, sorry, no, maybe it went quiet anyway. So
Joe wants to catch his train.
Well, yeah, I've got 15 minutes.
Any last questions?
It's something, but I'm not sure whether it's a question or what it is. And it's something that's common to all films from, like, noticed in Mobius strip. Mm-hmm. There's some maths in there. It's like you're going you must be going one frame, then 2 frames of each, and then back to 3 frames of each, and back to 4 frames of each.
Being a systems artist?
No, there's something about that should be alienating. Like here, we put them under scrutiny. Here's some people. We put them through this maths process. This maths, but it always comes back to what Joan meant. There's a humanity to it. So there's something odd going on.
The earlier ones were a little bit more mathematical.
Yeah.
But I'm not very good at rules, so if I set myself that rule, I'm going to break it at some point. But actually, I think if we're editing on things, timing for me is a big thing. So that's the right point to do it. and that will have an effect. So whether it's a beat later, a bit survey the film, there's a bit in there that annoys me all the time because there's a dark bit that should have been a beat earlier, and it's always just feels like it feels like it's ended. And I think it's important to hit things on those points, because when we're talking about editing, we're not talking about seconds. We're talking about beat there and a beat there and a hit there. So it depends on what you set up and how you do it. So there might be on some of them a mathematical sort of idea to start off with, but then it sort of goes because it's a feeling. So you feel that's the right time. So you can watch it and you can go now.
It feels like it's something and it's shadow. It's a bit like the train.
Yeah.
You have the train going through the landscape. I can't remember which film it is.
Mobius, I think.
Mobius. And the train's going, and then you delay the reflection.
Yeah.
So the reflection comes later, and then in the next shot, it comes even later. It's like me and my shadow. It's like it, and it has a shadow.
I like playing with time.
Yeah. It's a
Find
really nice
time really
style.
interesting.
Yeah.
And playing with it. I mean,
So you like
filmmakers, animators.
You like disturbing how it is somehow. It's a disturbance somehow.
That's because people are, most people think time's linear. Why? It's that idea we can play around with that.
Well, I like that idea that the light in your eye, the colour arrives later. That if you're in an accident or something very traumatic, you're supposed to get like a black and white image. Remember it in black and white because the colour comes a split second later, and it feels like you're extending that idea of the colour or some element of understanding arriving much later.
I've never really thought of it like that. I mean, I do, I suppose I do delay things, and I do like to split
them apart somehow.
And it might go back to the very first bit that I showed you. The idea of it being photographic and real allows you to play with that in a different sense, because there's a believability. There's, okay, this is real because it's got a photograph, but there's something happened that's not real. So I just, it's nice to just put a little twist. It makes things a bit awkward, but not in a disturbing way.
Yeah.
I want people. Well, maybe I do.
A questioning way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. That'll do. I'll write that down.
You're not alienated. We're never alienated from the things we're looking at. We're in those landscapes. We're with those people.
So you're stretching it to get more understanding after that. Somehow it feels.
This sort of film making sometimes can be quite alienating. Whatever you might call artist film, but I've always wanted to make it not. So I want an accessibility to it.
Yeah.
But without going, I'm going to make sure it's accessible.
Yeah. There's an emotion in there.
Yeah.
Because quite often films that use the systems and the maths and the construction, they dissociate themselves from emotion, but you don't do that.
No,
you keep the emotion very clearly.
There's a very definite emotional arc to the films. So if someone might think of a story arc, I'm very definite want to get an emotional arc. And I can show you some others. And sometimes it comes with the sound, so there might just be a single note. Right, there's an emotion note, not a whole soundtrack of things going on like that. Yeah. So if we're looking at something that, it's not abstract, but it's not conventional film, and it's in a different structure, that's the thing I want to get in there. So not story arc, but an emotional arc. So we go from one point. We still go from one point to another. I suppose there's a convention in that.
It's all right.
Is it all right?
Break that, we'll break that for sure.
I'm going to have to change that.
Well, should we wrap up there? The club wants their room back very soon as well. So, but can we have a big round of applause for Jerwood?
Sure you want to step down and compete now? Yes. It should just be a big yes. Thank you. Thanks for coming and
Thank you.
staying for so long. I mean, I can bore people for hours sometimes.